Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about feeling inferior. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, how can I avoid feeling inferior when I have a better programmer in my team? Well, it's the in sports is the most common thing is what is it they say, don't compare yourself to other people. There's a quote for that, I can't remember who said it, but don't compare yourself to other people, compare yourself to the previous to the person you were yesterday. That is it's not a cliche, well maybe it is a cliche, but it is true. It's sort of true, but I also sort of, it's an idealistic state or idealistic mindset to me, because to not compare yourself to some other person at any given time, it requires a lot of personal growing and maturity to achieve something like that, and it's not something that is inherent to, I think it's a taught skill. It's not something you are born with. You have to learn how to do that. And the best tip that I can give you, that sort of has worked for me at the very least, that mitigates a lot of this, but I can't say that I have never felt inferior to someone else or so forth in my career. I'm in a sense lucky these days because it's been some time since I get, when you get to a certain point in your career, it's not really about, it depends on of course how far you go, but I'm gonna call myself a little bit of a freak in this space. So for me to feel inferior to somebody else, it's sort of like, I know I'm not the world's best programmer, but I also know that my skill level, or like my level of understanding of software and so forth, is on par, is at a level where finding someone who's going to make me feel small in software is very unlikely. But the reality is that when it has happened, or when it does happen, there is one thing that works, at least for me, it works really, really well. But this is probably not going to be for everybody, because unfortunately there is a large portion of the world that has an ego that is very important to them. And that ego is something that they need in order to feel good about themselves. And the problem with having too much of an ego is that you cannot adopt the principle that I like to use, which is to basically humble yourself to the point where you don't take yourself seriously enough to feel threatened by that someone else is better than you. The reason why this is easy for me is because I have lived a life where I've at times been good at things, and more often than not it has been good. I've been good at things that doesn't really matter in the mainstream world, and the things that that are popular within our culture are things I've never really been so good at. It's sort of like uh, how do I put this in a nice, well, I don't know how to say it nicely, but the things that are mainstream to the point where people almost worship those skills or those attributes of aspects of another person, they are things that I find to be, like in the early days I wanted them as a child, as a teenager I wanted them because that made me popular, right, or that would make you popular. But then I started realizing that the people that appreciate these things, the people that are getting popular among the people who are raising them up, these are people these are people I don't want to be around. If that, I hope that makes sense, guys. The like being popular or being like praised or so forth, it's not I came to that realization. If you have hundreds and hundreds of people that worship you for something that is, well, let's just say that it's not something you're proud of yourself. Is that a nice thing? Does that make you feel good? Like, is your ego so weak that any praise from anybody means something? It's sort of like I made this analogy before. If you are patted on the back by your mentor for doing a really good job in your whatever you're doing, right? Someone you truly respect, versus being patted on the back by your mother, saying basically getting a consolation prize. Does that feel different somehow? Do you feel like one is more significant than the other? And when I came to realize that that is actually the thing that I care about, I realized that there are always going to be people that are more mainstream. They're doing something that is like, that they're going to get praised for. But the thing that makes me feel good has nothing to do with being praised for something that doesn't feel so meaningful, if that makes sense. The thing that makes me feel good about myself is slightly different. And that allowed me to get into a headspace where someone can be like literally the best person in the world at, say, software development, and I can be in the same room with them, and I don't really feel all that. I don't feel threatened by them, because it's not because their achievements doesn't necessarily mean that that has nothing to do with me. It's like being angry at someone for winning the lottery, or being angry at someone who goes and works out every single day and has like the perfect gene combination or something like that. But you can certainly be jealous of them a little bit and envy them, and I think that's the most human thing in the world. But that doesn't mean that you should put yourself in like confrontation mode where you're basically resenting them or feeling bad over, like you're creating tension between you and this other person whose achievements and all the things that they have done has nothing to do with you. You're basically just hurting yourself. And so if you want to avoid putting yourself in that position where you feel inferior or so forth and so forth, you have to realize that the thing that makes them so good and so forth has nothing to do with you. It has to do with they are not doing that to hurt you. They are just being themselves, usually. And the reason why you are angry and frustrated and so forth is because you have an ego where you have to work on yourself to the point where you realize that there's always going to be someone who's going to be better than you. And the fact that someone else is better than you and that hurts you has to do with your own insecurity, your need to be popular, your need to be in the spotlight, the limelight, etc., etc. And that, my friend, is a chalice of poison that is going to, let's just say that the vast majority of popular culture and so forth, this is what everybody's sipping from. Instagram likes, etc., etc. It's no different for us software developers. If your whole thing is that you feel that this person is so good, you're so bad, and you create resentment or insecurities in yourself, etc., etc., then you have lost focus on what matters. Because the reality is that I could take you and I could put you as, even regardless of what skill level you are, and put you in a group where you are the best of the best. I can take a junior software developer and put them in a room with people who don't know anything about coding. Would that make you feel better? Well, if you have a really weak ego, then that probably would make you feel better. Exactly as the Instagram models and like all the people who get, dressed up and create fake lives and so forth, because it does not matter who gives them praise. It is important to get praise. And if you are that sort of person, your insecurity, I'm sorry to say, then the only way to solve that for yourself is to stop thinking about getting praise, because getting praise, it's hollow. It is hollow as fuck. When you have no reason for getting praise, well, then you're basically, like, as I said, like it's gonna wear off sooner or later. And by the time you realize that the thing that really feels good is achievements, well, let's just say the quicker you can get to that point, the better. Because once you get to that point, when you realize that your own achievements, feeling good over your accomplishments, is the thing that should be your focus, that's when you stop caring so much about other people's achievements. It's not, I mean, I'm not going to claim that it's all going to go away, but what I'm saying is that the more things you have to be proud over, where you have overcome things that were difficult for you. So the easier it will be for you to not feel inferior to somebody else. But if you don't rack up the achievements, well, then you're left with this sensation that you are worthless, or you're hollow, or you have nothing, and these people have everything. But often, as I said, guys, you will find that the people who are really, really good, some of them have inherent ability, of course, but it's not like they don't do things in order to improve themselves. So that cliche I was talking about, it is really, really, it is true. Focusing on the person you used to be and who you are today is the way to combat these sensations of inferiority. And the other part, as I said, is that you have to kill off that idea, because it is an illusion that you have with you. It's sort of, in my opinion, a sign of immaturity, where you still believe that you are special somehow, that you it's almost at a primal level. You feel as if someone else being better than you is a threat to you, and they are only a threat to you, well, as long as your ego is telling you that these people are a threat. But the reality is, guys, that there's going to be tons of situations where you're going to have to face the fact that there are people who are better than you, and that's okay, because just because they're better at one thing than you, that doesn't mean that that your life is less valuable, or that you can't be good at other things that they are not so good at. So it's sort of that comparison, as I said, it's a poison chalice. It's a poison chalice and tons of people sip from it all the time. And it comes down to exactly the same thing. It comes down to that it is important to you to perceive yourself as being the best in any given context. Now, you know at a logical level that you cannot be the best at everything all the time, but your primal brain is going to kick in at some point and make you feel as if this doesn't feel so good to my ego, and you're going to try to dismiss people, you're going to try to dehumanize them, or things like that, like all those normal stuff that happens in today's world. You're going to do all that stuff, and the only way, as I said, to combat it is to have achievements where you feel proud over yourself, and realizing that, yeah, my achievements are still there. Doesn't have to mean that. I mean, take famous people that people who have different careers in different fields. Do you think that the music artists are jealous of the movie stars, or vice versa? Probably, maybe a little sometimes, but most of them are probably just kind of, yeah, this is a very, very accomplished person in one area, I'm an accomplished person in another area. Your achievement they don't go away just because somebody else is makes more money or whatever, etc., etc. So that's my recommendation to you. So what I want you to take away from this is that the way you feel that you avoid feeling inferior is that it really comes down to your personality and growing as an individual. There is no way that I can just tell you, just don't care about what other people are doing and focus on your own thing, because that's, if you don't know that by now, you should read more, study more, talk to mature people more, because this is sort of common knowledge to anybody who practices any type of sport or skill or anything like that. There's always going to be someone better, and the reality is that the only way out of that situation is to work even harder to be as good as you can be. And when you get old enough, hopefully at the very least, you will get to a point where you start to realize that if you are the world's best at, I don't know, music, do you think, why would you be jealous as someone who is the world's best, I don't know, football player or whatever? You can be jealous that they are really good at football, but your accomplishments are still there. And those accomplishments is the thing that fills the void and gives you enough sensation of personal worth to handle the fact that you're not the best at everything. And the only people who go around being jealous at other people for having praise and etc., so forth and so forth, are usually people who have nothing to be proud of themselves, and children who spend all their time looking at Instagram people who basically get likes for doing a pouty face. Have a great day.